David and I have built our fair share of large and small model railroads over the years. But after talking a bit one day, we realized that neither one of us had ever built a narrow gauge layout. The more we talked about it, the more excited we got about building our next project layout based on popular ON30 narrow gauge trains. And as long as we were planning to work with new train equipment, we thought it might also be fun to try a new approach to the construction of this display style layout. Let me show you some of the things we've got planned for our ON30 layout we're calling the Olympia Logging Company Railroad. For starters, let's take a quick look at the ON30 equipment. Now, the term ON30 refers to O-scale models that operate on HO-scale track. Now, for comparison, here's an ON30 steam locomotive next to an HO-scale locomotive and an O-scale model. ON30 trains aren't gauged for precise O-scale narrow gauge specs, but the convenience of operating on standard HO-scale track makes it easy for many to overlook. While the trains may run on HO-scale track, all the structures, the figures, the vehicles, and the scenery are modeled in O. Now, since we're working with a new type of train, the ON30 trains, we thought we might try something a little different too for the display style layout. Now, in this case, we're actually going to build a shadow box. And the shadow box kind of frames the layout in a position where all you see is the scene within basically a narrow range. Now, the shadow box opening here is only about 4 feet wide, but the entire length of the layout is 7 feet. Well, with the additional length, we're going to use a traverser to shuttle trains from one track to the other and keep the amount of track to a minimum. Okay, so we talked about the shadow box, but here's kind of a mock-up of the layout that we have in mind. Now, because you can see it's only using 1, 2, 3 tracks there and one turnout. We only need the one turnout because we've got the traverser to move trains from one section to the other. But of course, in the logging layout, we need to have some elevation as well. So we've got this incline here representing the elevation that we'll gain to get to the tree line. And at the front of the layout, we also have a pond, log pond, for dumping the logs after the train moves down and moves over to the traverser and back to the sawmill that we kind of have planned in place here. Okay, now let's talk about the scenery we have planned for this layout. Now, of course, at the upper end of the layout, we'll need to have tall trees represented by this tall pine here. I'll lay this down over here. But we also need to have ground covering. And ground covering that's kind of a coarse material that represents what you'd see on a forest floor. And as the train moves down, of course, we'll need to keep the rail line protected. And we plan to use a snow shed. But we'll build this in 2 sections. We'll build the section in the middle, and then we'll build a section at the end, so that we'll hide the train as it moves off the layout to the traverser. So now when the train comes back onto the layout, we'll want to disguise that as well. So we're going to add in a water tank there to prevent people from seeing the train coming in. And as the train continues, it will move along to the front of the layout to a log pond. And of course, the train will drop off the logs for processing at the sawmill we have planned to put in place there. Of course, we'll need vehicles coming and going from the sawmill, and of course, plenty of good people working around the various sites on the layout. So that's what we have planned. Be sure to join us as we launch into building our ON30 layout, the Olympia Logging Company. In the next several weeks to come, we'll share all we've learned as we explore new trains, new layout building techniques, and a lot of fun. We'll see you there.